Brosplay.
This way.
Is it me, or do you look a lot like Marcus Phoenix from the back?
From the back?
Yeah.
Yeah, quite a bit. I need shoulders and like these wings that come up to the back of my neck, like basically the middle of my head. That's what I'm looking for. All right, welcome.
Dom, get your ammo over here.
Get your small head and your fucking ammo over here.
Get
Dom.
your tiny head, Dom.
Jesus.
That's not. I don't even know how to do his voice. Fucking Dom DiMaggio. John
Dom
Gio.
Yeah, Dom Gio.
You know, I was thinking about this. I think we've talked about it a couple times, but it is likely, or I guess the likeliness increases. How does that work? No. In all likeliness,
dude, that sounds like the way. It sounds like the way you would start a chapter. The likelihood increases. You know, you're like one of those turn-based games you don't like. Oh, yes. You do some sort of a move, you know, like...
The elf increases his luck.
We have used quick agility. The likeliness increases.
So, in all likeliness, eventually, one of the people that we talk about will hear about us talking about them.
Potentially, yes.
And then we will meet them. Whether it's a good or a bad thing, whether it's people we like or don't like, eventually, we will run into someone who recognizes us, who knows that we've said something about them, whether it's positive or negative. And that randomness kind of frightens me.
The fact that you could just one day meet someone who's just like, hey, fuck you, man. I heard what you said about me 2 years ago in one video.
Yeah. Now, for the most part, you know, when we make fun of, I don't know, Jessica Alba, I have a feeling she's had so much shit thrown at her that we are not even on the radar.
Unless we said something very specifically egregious.
But this day, I mean, yeah, it would be bad if we started something. Like if we just started calling, you know, the way that Family Guy started this Sarah Jessica Parker horseface thing?
No, is that where that came from?
Pretty sure that's where it came from.
Brutal.
I'm pretty sure South Park started the kick a ginger thing too. I'm not 100% on that one, but...
I don't know about that. I think that's been around since the 70s.
Or do you think that they just popularized it?
Yeah, I think they
okay, maybe
brought it a resurgence.
See,
I know people whose dads
we might run into fucking Trey Parker or Matt Stone, and they're like, "Yo, I heard you fucking spreading misinformation about my show I've been making for 15 years."
There's a small part of me
fisticuffs.
Fisticuffs.
Yeah, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, they seem like fisticuffs kind of guys.
Rather than fighters.
No, fisticuffs is a fighting thing.
It's an unusual fighting. It's an Irish fighting.
Yeah, but it's fucking hard, man.
It's basically
that
bare
shit
knuckle.
Hurts. It's still gonna hurt.
My rationale about it, though, is that generally what we say is not particularly inflammatory, generally speaking. But if somebody's upset and they're just kind of mad that we talked about them, that person can go fuck themselves. Think about the reality of what you just said. If Trey Parker were upset that we talked about not knowing whether or not South Park did something, that guy can go fuck himself if he's angry. And I don't think he would be.
I don't think you would be. I think that they have pretty thick skin. And
they better.
Well, I mean, with the stuff they say.
They wouldn't have made it this far if they didn't.
But also, like, it's not so much about someone actually finding us. People try to get people in trouble now. So, like, the reason why Rob Schneider and his wife went on Guest Grumps is because somebody went and took a moment where Aaron was going off about Rob's show, Real Rob, and sent it to Rob Schneider and said, look, this guy is making fun of you. And Rob watched it and was like, this guy has a lot of passion and really good points, and contacted him and joined the show for Guest Grumps. So it turned into a really positive thing, but it doesn't always work out that well. Yeah. Sometimes people really do get angry about shit. Sometimes people, you know, do like fake copyright strikes to fuck with people, or they publicly give them a hard time and shit.
Well, one great thing, at least right now, is that we can't really be harmed in a certain sense that if anyone were to try and throw any shit at us, all they'd be doing is giving us
at this point
their audience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, at this point, yeah.
Everyone who levies hate against us would purely be opening us up to people who would actually be interested. But I know what you mean. Down the line, when like you have a business to run that's associated with your entertainment, and then yeah, someone just comes along and they just want to be a shitty cunt about it.
There was that time that iDubbbz decided to actually personally visit someone who said some shit about him online, because this other YouTuber said that she wanted him to break both his legs and lose all of his subscribers because he uses the N-word in his videos. So he went to one of her concerts and she didn't recognize him and just fucking punked her on camera. And it became this huge thing before he even made the video about it, and he knew that. Like, it got out of hand. Definitely got out of hand. But like, that kind of moment is kind of a frightening thing. It's like just someone can just show up over a thing you said.
Oh shit, that was cool.
What?
So this guy led us into that attack, but because it didn't kill him, he gave me a resurrection vial.
Nice.
That's a good deal. Yeah, that whole thing with iDubbbz.
What? Oh, so I thought something happened with your controller.
No, sorry. So that's what I mean, where he went and did it knowing full well that the blowback alone was going to bring people in.
Mm-hmm.
And also,
oh yeah, the content comp that came out like a month after that was one of the biggest he's ever had.
Well, I bet, because everyone's anticipating it at that
hugely
point.
anticipated. Yeah, oh yeah.
To me, it seems like in the modern era, all you have to do when it comes to a scandal is make sure that the number of people who see the scandal and are not offended is greater than the number of people who see it and are. So if 100,000 people are offended, as long as 1 million people look at it and 900,000 of them go, oh, that wasn't so bad. Hey, this guy's actually kind of cool.
There's no news like bad news.
Yeah, and you win. You know what would actually be kind of interesting? Someone who started a YouTube channel that was devoted to finding people who have been sort of put into overblown scandals and trying to present the reality of the situation to try and get people to actually go to their channel. So, you know, you try to destroy somebody, but in the process of trying to destroy them, you actually make them stronger.
Interesting.
It's kind of like the idea of a court of public appeal, like just make a podcast called the Court of Public Appeal, where you just talk shit all day and go over stuff like this, get people mad.
The Court of Public podcast?
Ooh, I would say that's rough around the edges, but that's like,
so is that
you can cut yourself on those edges.
That flame amulet was rough around the edges.
A little bit.
Yeah, we are playing a video game. We know.
We're aware
I know,
of
we
it.
just spent like the last hour not talking about video games. It's okay. That's what we're here for. We ain't got nothing to say. We ain't say
Yeah, exactly. We're not gonna have to say anything.
Not whole Glade. Then what is it?
It's in the other hole.
What?
Yeah, it's in the other hole.
No.
It's not in the hole.
No.
Is it out of the hole?
What is with the coloring on the
buildings?
The buildings.
I think one's a bar and one's a blacksmith and one's
I know they're important,
a
but
tattooist.
What are you doing?
I'll be honest, I don't understand your question.
What's happening? Where are we?
This game is very basic. I will say that.
I gotta say that when we were kids, this game felt way more open, and it's because very few games gave you these many choices. Like the ability to choose which direction you go was not normal when this came out. So like this was like amazing. It was like, oh my god, you can do stuff and the choices affect the game?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, dude, when this first came out, the good versus evil thing was totally new. To me at least.
Mass Effect 2 did it really well. Where it was Paragon and Renegade, and it wasn't necessarily good or evil. But it was like you could like get evil points just for saying shit, and sometimes you said shit and it caused fights that wouldn't have happened otherwise. Sometimes you could have been after a guy and you really want to there's a mission where Garrus wants to talk to an old friend, and your character says that you don't think this guy is going to treat Garrus as a friend, and Garrus is like, no, please let me talk to this guy. And there's a point where you have an option to just fucking shoot him, because you think he might be pulling a gun on Garrus, and then Garrus never gets to talk to that guy. Or you can let it happen and chance that he might kill Garrus. And the end of the game, dude, fucking anybody can die except for you in the end of the second game. And like, because there's parts where it's like you have to like fend off like a swarm, and you have to choose which biotic you want to use as shield. And if you choose the weaker of the biotics, they lose the shield and someone gets fucking pulled away by the swarm.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I didn't know these were options. I figured the game just happened that way until I watched someone else's version of it, where like a completely different series of people were alive at the end of the game. And I was like, how the fuck did that happen? Like in my game, the fucking robot and Jacobs lived, like the two like least interesting characters, and all the other ones died. I killed everybody because I made every wrong choice in the ending of the game, and everyone can live.
I appreciate that though, where there's real consequences.
Yeah.
There are some times that I'm actually bothered by games where it is so obvious what to do. It feels like, oh, okay, well, I know if I click A, this will happen, and that's kind of what I want. Okay.
What is that man?
Yeah, he's a little unusual. He actually with that, looks like a lederhosen that he's wearing.
Okay, yeah. It's actually a side, what do they call it, a side
Go up to my
satchel?
house and fight the Balverine. When you come back from fighting the Balverine, I'll give you your reward.
Oh, hi.
Welcome to Notwald Glade.
My accent is such an aside, I keep it on my side satchel.
You actually reminded me of a character from Sherlock Holmes. I hear of Mary. Oh, she's got terrible warts. Oh, and the doilies. Those are great movies, man. They're so not Sherlock Holmes, but I appreciated those
and the
movies.
doilies.
They were
Fucking
good.
Hilarious. I loved the film, the part in the film where he comes in and he's trying out a suppressor for a gun, and he's just shooting guns off, and the dog looks like he's dead, and he's like, no, he's fine.
Yeah. There was a certain aspect to those movies that was very Sherlock Holmes, and a certain aspect that was much more Iron Man. And I think that's why some people had a problem with it, is that Sherlock Holmes does not fight people.
That's
the thing that's
the thing that both of them do, is that the Benedict Cumberbatch one does that too, where they both fight. And I like how in both they kind of explain that he's a practical man, and he also like understands the human body, so he's very smart with his actions.
Makes sense, but if you talk to any martial artist, without practice, you're still gonna be dog shit.
But he does practice though.
Does he?
I mean, we don't see him practice,
Yeah.
but clearly, like at this point, like the beginning of the Downey Jr. movies, he's like pretty practiced at fighting. He's in like a bare knuckle boxing match.
Yeah, that's true. That's what he does with his pastime.
But he also like, yes, of course. I mean,
It's also not Sherlock.
Obviously, it's a fantasy thing, but when he's like step 1, throw cape over face. Step 2, disorient with clap on the ear. Step 3, like hit solar plexus. Like, of course you have to practice that, but like in a fantasy world, it's not really that much of a stretch to say that he'd be able to do all of those things in that order.
It definitely fits with his persona of being that wicked smart character. And everything else is done well. All of his investigative skills are exactly as you'd expect Sherlock Holmes to be. But Sherlock Holmes is not nearly as much of a jackass.
Oh, is he normally a nice guy?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I remember that. Sherlock Holmes in the 21st century.
Okay,
I remember him being very charismatic in that.
There's that. But yeah, and even in the stories, he's always right on the side of the police and the victim. Like he's not like, oh, well, if I happen to figure out what happened to you, I'll let you know.
Right.
He's way more caring and compassionate than that. Like significantly. He also uses a lot more trickery. I noticed there wasn't really a ton of trickery in the Sherlock Holmes movies, mostly because he's reacting to stuff.
I guess. I mean, he fakes his death in the TV show, right?
Well, one of my favorites is actually from one of the actual like novel stories. There's a turkey that somebody hides a gem in, and then somebody else goes and buys that turkey inadvertently, and then someone gets murdered somehow. I don't really remember how the murder happened. But so he goes to the farmer who bought the turkey that had the gem in it, and he says, so we found the turkey. Unfortunately, it has been, like, somebody else ate it. If you want, we kept all of the entrails and the bones, just in case you want them for some reason. And the guy just goes, no, why would I want all the bones? But it was a trick, because if the guy wanted the bones, it's because he would want to look for the gem inside the bones. Yeah, so it's really kind of slick, because the guy wouldn't even know he's being tested.
Dude, in the TV show, like, remember how elaborate his death faking is?
Dude, I do not remember this.
It's down to the second. He has Watson stand in the perfect spot so he can fall off a building into one of those giant air balloons, have it deflated. A guy on a bike hits him and knocks him over so that they can move some shit around, put a new pretend
maybe that's
body.
why I stopped watching that show.
It was fucking great, actually. I loved it. And I loved when he reintroduces himself when Watson thinks he's been dead for like 2 years or whatever. And he's like, he doesn't think that it's going to be a traumatic moment. He's just like, yep, hello, hi. He just like makes a joke. He's like, would you like to try the something wine or whatever? And and Watson flips out, and then Mary's like, oh my god, this is the guy. Like, I get it. I get now why like you're so fucked up.
Yeah.
If this guy is willing to be like this after he pretended to die 2 years ago and let you believe it the whole time, and then he explains that like it's because he didn't think that Watson could like keep it together. He didn't think that he could keep it a secret.
You see, and that's
He's
one
such
thing.
an asshole.
That's one thing that I don't like about either of the live action ones. Is that I don't think Sherlock is like that at all. As far as I understand, him and Watson are actual best friends who actually treat each other proper.
Which is kind of back to that point that I made about Superman and Batman, where like it was Cosmonaut who said that when that people's like, how much people like from a character is based on how they are represented in media. Most people don't go and check out the comics to find out who Superman's supposed to be. They only take the Henry Cavill. They only take that version of him because that's what they see. So Sherlock was changed for Robert Downey Jr., and then they just adapted a new Sherlock based off of that Robert Downey Jr. instead of going from the source material, right?
Yeah, but that's like super dangerous. That's like changing a number in your computer files and then working off the changed number and assuming it's the same as the original, and then like
that's like changing the number someone's given in a book, or like moving a house to a different place, or changing the hairstyle, or whether the fight happens in the air or on the ground.
Dude, who directed the Giver movie? Do you know?
I have no idea.
I would really like to know that, actually.
It's probably not the director, actually. It's a lot of it ends up coming down to producers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I really stick behind my tweet that I made when we did the discussion of The Road. Who would write this better than Cormac McCarthy? Pete Fuckface, the screenwriter. Because that's what they do, man. They say this could, this needs to be a little thicker on the bones. It needs to have a little more meat to it. Hey, Johnny, get in here. This scene, this stoic, calm, quiet moment that really helps you understand the character. Yeah, fuck that scene. I want a fucking fight scene. I want to know he's stoic because at the end of it, he doesn't say shit when he kills the guy. That's what I want. Now sit down and write it the way I asked you to.
There's a whole like arc about that in BoJack Horseman, where they begin making this movie about a character who is compromised morally, and he's like everyone thought of him as this great guy, but in the reality he was actually not that great. And they change so much about the movie that they then replace BoJack with a computer version of BoJack. And he's like, so I'm not in the movie? And he's like, yeah, you're in the movie. I mean, you're not in the movie, but you're in the movie. And you know what? People like computer BoJack more than they like real BoJack.
Dude, I wouldn't doubt that at all.
Yeah. And then like the movie is like not at all about what it's supposed to be. And he says something about like, the producers. He's like, oh, well, the producers weren't really crazy about this movie about a runner or something. And he's like, that's what the movie's about. And he's like, not anymore.
I feel like one of the silliest things you can do also is trust, what do you even call those? Like the little test audiences that they do?
Oh, focus groups.
Focus groups. Because you'll be just guys sitting in a focus group and looking at a movie, and they'll say, is there anything wrong with it? And you'll just be like, yeah, if this was a little different, yeah, maybe that'd be better.
Right.
But now you're trusting Pete Fuckface, the non-screenwriter, the just normal member of society, to know what's gonna work for everyone?
You know, something that really bugged me the other day is that the new Ratchet and Clank is referred to as a PlayStation hit.
What?
Like a hit.
Really?
Know? Yeah. You know, like how they...
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
How they put like
there's
like a graphic over the thing now, and it's like PlayStation hit. Yeah.
Well,
welcome to the future.
Yeah, exciting. You gotta love. Yeah, no,
where people are where people are famous for their butts, and Ratchet and Clank, the reimagining, is a hit.
Well, that's a good example. Famous for their butts. That's new. That is totally new.
Famous for your butt.
Yeah, what era could somebody actually make a living, like a full-time living, off of taking pictures of their ass? That's new.
Yeah, it's definitely new.
That is very new. But at the same time, it's now becoming harder and harder to make a living as a truck driver, which used to be, like, one of the main ways to make a living. So yeah, shit's just changing. I see what you're saying. Strange times, but not really that strange. Just different.
Well, they'd be strange if you suddenly got here.
Which it feels like we did, man. Feels like we didn't really have a lot of time to adjust.
Oh, no, for me, I find it strange that I don't find it strange. I'm just like in this crazy world, and I don't really find it that weird. And then I look back on it, and I'm like, you know, it kind of is weird.
It is kind of weird, man.
The way that our generation has the most amount of information ever, and we have the most amount of information accessible. Very easily accessible. Everybody has a phone that connects to the internet that can tell them a lot of information, and yet most people still don't care about the really important basic information. Not a single person this morning was dressed for the weather today on the bus. Every single one of them was dressed like it was last fucking week. It's like, it is so easy. First, right before I leave the house, I type in the weather, and then it tells me what it is now and what it'll be by the end of my workday. And that's all I need. That's all I need. One day, it was fucking 21 degrees Celsius in the morning, and it was going to go down to almost 5 by the end of the day. So I left the house with shorts and brought myself a pair of pants. Simple as that. And I saw all these people on the way home freezing their asses off because it was 21 in the morning. How could it change so fast? Oh, I don't know. Like,
spring,
fall, weather elements that have existed for fucking ever.
Yeah.
I still hear people say, how could the weather change? What do you mean, how could it happens all the time?
Sorry,
back up. There's no rules, man.
You're not serious.
I heard somebody
say how could the weather change?
How could it have changed so quickly?
Oh.
Like how could it be cold yesterday and warm today? Like, has that never happened to you?
Oh.
Is that unusual? I'm only 26 years old, and I swear that shit's happened to me definitely fall and spring. That happens pretty frequently. But like, I've seen the snow melt completely in the middle of winter for like 3 days, and then we went back to snow.
We've had a green Christmas before.
It didn't snow here until after December at all. One year, it was crazy, and everyone was like, long summer means long winter, and then the winter lasted the same amount of time because it's not Game of Thrones. It doesn't have to work that way. It doesn't have to conform to a set of rules.
Yeah,
shit changes.
Yeah, I've always had a really big problem with people who deny that the climate changes.
Well, of course it's changing.
And I'm with you, but not everyone is.
Yeah.
And you know what? Most people don't deny it. I really shouldn't be that harsh because most people just don't know or like don't accept that fact. So they'll say, yeah, it's crazy how this summer is totally different. And it's not really crazy.
No.
It may suck or whatever, but it's not really that crazy. It's actually very expected.
Well, and people will say like, it's like, this is the hottest day. There's got to be a record. Fucking world is on fire. And then you find out that the record for the heat in your area hasn't been breached since like the 70s. It's because like that's why we keep records, because we're so bad at judging our current situation compared to others. And I've done it myself. Like during the heat of the summer, I was like, man, I wish it got colder. And then it did. and it got really fucking cold suddenly. And I was like, I kind of miss the heat. I kind of like a little bit more heat before we go into winter. And it came back, and then it got cold, and then it got hot. And I was like, okay, now I kind of just wanted to like pick something and stay there.
Yeah, that's the worst, is when it keeps changing. Because like you said, you'll go to work in 20, you'll come home in 5.
Yeah.
And how do you, for most people, well, like you take a bus, right? So it means you got to take all that shit with you.
Which isn't really that much of an issue for me.
It is annoying, though, if it goes from plus 20 to 5 every day.
Oh, yeah, if that was every day, that would be a problem.
Yeah, it would be a nightmare. And you're like, all right, well, I guess I got to make sure I have extra room just to include, just to include a sweater or just to have a raincoat with me. Really, I can deal with any temperature. I just, rain. Fuck rain.
Yeah, humidity in general, which is, I haven't talked about this yet. One of my favorite things is white people jokes. Like, white people love saying, it's the humidity that'll get you every time. It's not the heat.
It's the humidity. Yeah, there are a lot of things. There are a lot of white people say things that are super true.
And then, like, teacher going over syllabus. Yeah. Sorry, teacher says, we're going over syllabus. White girl in journal. Monday, going over syllabus.
Yeah. Something that always blew my mind when I was in school is there was these people who, I know it worked for them, but what they would do is they would go to class, they'd take notes, and then they'd go home and redo those notes out. Like when they had time to sit down and look at them.
Okay.
And then those same people would redo the notes when it came time to do the exam. So now they're doing the notes like 3 times when you think about in class.
Well, if it works.
I agree. But what I'm saying is what I would do is I'd go to class, I would take notes while in class, and then I would review the notes I took in class for the exam. So the work output by comparison, for them, 3 to 4 hours per lecture worth of writing. For me, I attend. And I was always just amazed that those people were able to keep that level up.
For me, I had such a hard time studying because, reading is just so fucking boring for me. But also, it was just never presented in a way that felt like it had anything to do with like reality. And I don't mean to say that like cliche thing of like, when am I gonna need this? What I mean is, it wasn't really put into like practical terms. I never felt like any of it mattered. Like any of it was real. It just felt like words.
Oh, I completely agree.
It's just like empty nonsense. You have to just wait here for a fight.
Yeah, you gotta wait for the fight before to finish off.
That's kind of a nice world building thing, but also kind of annoying.
Yeah, they want you to like explore this place and maybe buy something from the vendor and just crap like that. But I'm with you. I'd rather them just let us in.
You want to trade?
I really do know what you're saying about how disconnected you feel from it, because a lot of the times they'll do a word problem, but they won't make that word problem practical.
Right, it's like fucking apples and shit. And
yeah.
It's like, what? When would I be in what era did this come from where we're trading apples?
Yeah, well, and this is something that always bugged me, is they would say, the Teresa is building a shed. She has this distance along this wall and this distance along that wall. How come Teresa isn't just walking somewhere? And then you do the trig for how much distance she would save by going in a straight line. Why can't we simplify this?
Why can't we get into copyrighted material? Why can't we be like, Frodo needs to travel to the...
Well, you could. You could, man. There's no copyright on that. Like, they have no right to deny you using it.
I guess they probably have a hard time with that. Although, if it's in a textbook, then that might be an issue.
Yeah, that would be different, because in a textbook, they make money.
Work.
They make money off a textbook, yeah. But a teacher can write whatever he wants.
Yeah, teachers don't make
money.
He or
she wants. What? Well, they don't make any money from the students directly for the tests.
If teachers make money to teach people, then maybe they just don't teach people to be smart, and then the next people are dumb.
Yeah, that's something like that.
Maybe they've been secretly not teaching people how to teach their children so that they get to teach their children.
So that the parents have to do it, you mean?
In a world,
yeah. I don't know how that could be reformed. All of the
There's a joke. That is just like, it's just like, why would I listen to my dentist? He makes money because I don't have good teeth or whatever.
I was going back to the questions and trying to make education more interesting to people like you who don't really give a shit about the numbers. Because for me, I always like the numbers themselves.
I think that the style that Vsauce does is really nice, but I don't think everything can be taught that way. And you also can't condense, or maybe you can. Maybe the issue with schooling is how much time it takes. Like,
absolutely.
Maybe that's too much. Maybe it takes like. I think I learned more from shows like MythBusters and Vsauce and shit like that than I did from school, because they showed me like what it actually means to say. Like, I don't really care about protons and electrons as a concept, but if you can show me a diagram and what it means to the things that those atoms are in, then I can become interested. Show me how gravity works. With that, I think you showed it to me. It was like a visualization of how gravity works, but it's like a practical thing.
With a sheet,
Where he puts the like something on the sheet and shows how gravity operates. I never got gravity. I never really knew what it meant. And I always thought that it was created by centrifugal force.
Oh, really?
It's mass, right?
Yes, mass is the only thing that affects gravity.
Yeah. Now, centrifugal force can be used to create artificial gravity, right? But it's mass in this situation that creates gravity for Earth.
Yes, and it's actually centripetal force.
Oh, because centrifugal is the opposite.
No. Centrifugal force, not a thing.
What?
Centrifugal force, not a thing.
What?
It's just never been a thing. Yeah, so this is what's weird about centripetal force. You always assume, imagine you put a ball on a string, spin it over your head.
Right.
You assume that the force you're generating is outwards, right?
Right.
But that's not true at all. In fact, the force you're generating in order to make that go in a circle is inwards. Because the ball wants to go in a straight line. The only reason it's going in a circle is because you're pulling it towards the middle constantly.
Oh, like satellites.
Yeah, exactly. They're being tugged by the Earth's gravity inwards. So when we talk about centripetal force making artificial gravity, you are standing on the outside wall because the outside wall is pushing inwards on you.
Whoa.
Yeah.
It's kind of like people perceive heat as something that comes onto them.
Yeah.
It's actually sucking from you.
Well, it's the other way around. People think of cold as being a thing.
Sorry, cold, yes.
But really, cold is just the heat leaving.
Well, and two, like a metal object and a wool object in the same environment are the same temperature, but the transference rate is so much higher on the metal object that it feels cold because it's taking heat from you.
Yes.
Which is why you never put food directly onto a stainless steel object after you've cooked it, because you will lose that heat so fast.
Onto a stainless steel object?
Yeah, like in a kitchen, like a proper business style kitchen. I don't know how to describe it.
Oh, you're saying so when food is cooked, if you put it down on stainless steel, that thing's gonna cool off immediately.
Yep. Oh, it'll suck it right out. It'll be gone.
That's good to think about.
You put it on anything but stainless steel, whether it's a cardboard box or whatever it was cooking on. Basically anything but metal.
And it'll be fine.
Well, I mean, it'll be less
interesting. It's absolutely good to keep that in mind because water, honestly, is the coolest shit ever. I love water. I find water to be fascinating because
sometimes I just drink it for the hell of it.
I do. So water has probably one of the highest resistances to heat. That's why when you go to put a pot of water on the stove, it takes forever to boil. It's why people say a watch pot never boils.
It doesn't take forever. It doesn't even take 5 minutes. I boil water every day for both tea, coffee, and food, which is more than 2 things, and not both.
Well, first of all, when you're talking about boiling the water in a kettle, it's a little different because the heating element's in the water rather than you heating up the steel of the pot. But also, when you make rice, you put in, what, a cup of water?
Oh, I see what you mean.
And like
I'm not putting a lot of water in.
Well, exactly. We'll sometimes put 4, 5, 6 cups of water in a pot and then try and boil it. So sometimes it really does take a while. But also, you've noticed that when you're done with it, the water stays hot for a long time.
It does, actually, yeah.
And one of the few things that holds heat longer than water is oil. That's why oil is so dangerous in a kitchen.
It's very dangerous, yes.
Especially when mixed with water.
Which is why, like, proper kitchen attire is designed to tear away. That's what those white uniforms are, with, like, the double-breasted thing. Those are, like, those, like, come off easy. So that if you get shit on you, you can take off your clothes.
Oh, if it's on fire,
Yeah.
or, like, boiling in oil.
Or oil, yeah. Have you ever seen...
Don't talk about that WorkSafe commercial.
I was not going to say that.
Okay, good.
That was horribly traumatic and should never have been on television. Not on kids. Anyway, we were kids when we saw that shit. It was horrible.
Yeah, it was
And it was on like family-friendly TV. And for, like, kids are supposed to be watching this shit, and then you're like traumatizing them. That shit was worse than. Okay, Nostalgia Critic has this whole thing about how like Canadian commercials, especially PSAs, are really fucked up, and he's totally right. Like every Christmas he does a commercial review episode, and he always has to put in one of those weird Canadian ones, like "Don't you put it in your mouth."
Don't you put it in your mouth?
That's Canadian, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is weird. It is really weird.
Don't you stuff it in your face, though it might look good to eat, and it might look good to taste.
You're right, though. Canada does have some really unusual ads. Like, I told you about that one that still bothers me about, what's that? Fentanyl? About fentanyl and getting an naloxone kit. And these fucking motherfuckers at Canadian, or Health Canada.
What did they say?
Know where your street drugs come from. I don't even need to qualify that with anything. It's just ridiculous.
Oh, that is such a Steve Buscemi, hello there, children. Let's go rip the gnar. Like, know where your street drugs come from.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous.
That's hilarious.
Well,
that's
yeah,
that's hilarious.
It's so hilarious, and what they're doing with that, to me, that is blaming the victim. That is
right.
100% blaming the victim. They're saying,
just don't send nudes.
Yeah, they're saying
just don't do it.
You need to know where your drugs are coming from and get a secure chain of custody on your illegal street drugs coming from Mexico across 2 borders.
Well, that's the thing. You don't even know. You don't even know if it's Mexico. It could be anywhere. Everywhere makes drugs.
Yeah.
They're all over the place.
But regardless, you're telling me I have to have an effective chain of custody on an illicit substance that comes across an international border, even though that is, I'm sorry, whose job? Your job to do that.
I just think it's like a funny idea. It's like the 21 Jump Street thing. It's like find the deal, infiltrate the dealers, find the suppliers, and it's like
so simple.
But those are the guys trying to find the drug dealers and the suppliers through the drug users, but like it's like a chain. Like if your dealer, if you met your dealer and you're like, yo, who you get from? They'd be like, yo, shut the fuck up and don't ask any other dealer that you meet that question.
Yeah, if you ask that question, we're not doing business again.
Yeah, they would be like, yo, don't go to this fucking guy. He's asking about suppliers and shit. Like, yo, get out of here. And then you meet the supplier and they're like, hi, I found out from this guy, and they're like, yo, fuck out of here, man. That's actually more dangerous than not knowing where your drugs come from, is hunting down the source.
Yeah, it's just, to me, it really is, it's the same as saying, like, oh, well, it shouldn't have been dressed like that.
Right.
It's the exact same argument. And it just seems so ridiculous that we're willing to put that on our citizens.
Just don't put your coffee cup on top of your car.
Well,
it's that simple.
Here's actually something to help people who are still entrenched in that argument, because there are still a lot of people that think that, like, oh, well, you shouldn't have dressed in a particular way. If you go walking through a bad neighborhood with money hanging out of your pocket, you've put yourself in a very bad position, but you don't deserve to get robbed. You've just put yourself in a bad position.
Right.
Right? I think it's the exact same thing.
I think people just really, they're always looking for reasons to not feel guilty. So,
oh, yeah.
I
shouldn't have been doing that.
It's like
that's why you got in trouble.
I was just showing you a scene from Norseman when this dude's like, "Yep, a couple hours away from retirement. Oh, what are you gonna do? Oh, just see things." And then 2 arrows come at him, and he's like, "What are those 2 pointy things?" You don't really feel bad because he stood there waiting for 2 sharp objects. If it had come out of nowhere and it wasn't done in like a funny manner, you'd feel bad.
There'd be actual sympathy.
But
yeah.
it's comedy, so you don't want to feel bad. So in most comedy, they try to make you feel like it's all right. That you know, the guy who died had it coming to him because he just like wasn't a great guy, or he made a dumb decision. And it's so easy to believe someone not in your position.
I'll give you a little preview here of one of the discussions to come. We won't be doing it together, but in Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale, she says, we like to think of ourselves as not being the people in the news articles. We live in the white space that exists on the border.
Right.
And I thought that's exactly how it is. People like to assume we live beside, but not with, the people from the newspaper.
Yep.
Which is totally asinine.
Oh, I'm
so asinine.
I'm 26-year-old male. That's what I would be in the newspaper.
Oh yeah,
26-year-old male.
Yep.
I would be honored if they said 26-year-old entertainer or 26-year-old YouTuber. I would most likely just be 26-year-old male though.
Yep.
Let's be honest.
26-year-old male with
and like
wearing a black hoodie or whatever.
They even get it wrong with famous people. It's just like the 41-year-old like musician or something, and it's like he does a lot. Like musician was like the last thing he did, like or it's just like 26-year-old like stand-up comedian, and it's like that was like one time. Like that guy's not even known for that.
Yeah, like you can't.
Or they'll like get the genre of their music wrong. It's like you're reporting on their fucking death, and as a result, I guess their life, and you couldn't even like actually find out what they are. You just Wikipedia that shit.
And Wikipedia is not a bad source, though. It's just you gotta.
Start.
Yeah, it's a good start.
You just gotta go into that spot where it says sources and actually click them, and find out where that shit came from.
Yeah, have you ever heard advice, and it seems so brutally obvious to you that you wonder why the person said it? Like I've heard this advice many times. Instead of citing Wikipedia, go to the bottom and use the sources Wikipedia used as your citations.
Right.
I knew that shit when I was in grade 5.
Yeah.
Because that shit just makes sense. Why would you source something that isn't a thing? Wikipedia is not.
I was in a gen ed class in college, and we had to do a project, and the entire point of the entire course was essays. So we began with an essay, and then guess what? Second one was an essay, and the third project was a presentation in essay format. And like a bunch of people didn't do it in essay format. It was so clearly written how you were supposed to put it together and how you were supposed to have 3 references. And so I went, and mine was like exactly what it was supposed to be. And this dude goes up there with no references, and the teacher in the middle of the presentation just goes like, "Where are your references?" And he's like, "My what?" And the guy's like, "Oh, Mitch knows all about it."
Oh.
And so the guy walks over to me in the presentation, and he's like, "So how do I do this?" And the whole class is watching, and I'm like, "Where did you get the information?" He's like, "I'm not sure." And I'm like, "Okay.
Well, then there's nothing to be done for you.
What do you want me to do about that?" Like,
well, why the fuck did your teacher send him over to you?
Because he didn't know how to control his classroom. He also did that thing where I was like, "Hey, is it alright if I leave early to catch the bus?" And he's like, "I don't know." Or he's like, "You're an adult. You can do whatever you want." I was like, "Thanks. I'm definitely going to make decisions for your respect in the future."
Dude, someone threw a rose to me.
Wow. Check it out. Red rose.
That's always bothered me, because that teacher is not recognizing the fact that you're being courteous to him.
I was, yeah.
You're saying, "Hey, is it all right if I leave your class, disrupt things by getting up right in the middle of you talking?" And he's going to say, "Well, you do whatever you want. You're an adult."
Right. It was after the lecture, during the work period time, where we had the rest of the class, and I was so new to college that I just wasn't used to that, being able to leave whenever I wanted to, right?
Oh, I see.
So I was like, "Is it alright if I go? I would like to catch the bus." So like, he didn't even need to give me that fucking sass. It wasn't like I was leaving his class anymore. I was leaving the opportunity to work on stuff. It's just like, man, come on. Like, the good teachers know that their time is wasted on the students who don't want to be there. And the only time they should really put any time into those students is when they're interrupting other people. Like, when they frequently show up in the middle of a lecture, or when they're like on their phone or whatever it is. Like, obviously you have to do that to control your classroom. But beyond that fucking guy, Oh, that was like Terminator.
A little bit.
Where it's like, didn't do the thumbs up though.
Rock Terminator.
Terminator. Have you done a circle test?
Yeah, it doesn't work that well in this.
That's actually pretty
It's
good.
actually not bad. Yes, I'm going to move forward.
I forgot what we were talking
8,000
about.
gold. Well, we were just talking about teachers and just it's more really about the way people behave. If you notice that there's a lot of people that just don't think about the way they behave, plain and simple.
Yeah, down to you mentioning it, and they're like, yeah.
Well, okay, well,
So?
fortunately had not actually met anybody quite like that.
Really?
Well, maybe I just don't mention it.
You didn't work in fast food long enough.
No, I didn't. I didn't work in fast food for all that long at all, actually. And I'm very fortunate for that because it's just, in a way, it's very soul-sucking.
Absolutely. The people are the worst part. The jobs aren't even that bad. In fact, the job, I think I kind of preferred the work that I used to do in food, the actual work, just not the people.
Yeah. If you could have a restaurant where like you hired everybody and it was just this like nice little mom and pop shop where you had a good deal going on and the customers were nice and tips were good, and I feel like it'd be awesome working in a restaurant. But working at any sort of like long-standing franchise fast food place is just not going to be good. It's just not going to be a good experience when you're working there, and it's because of those people.
Yeah.
Those people who just do not care about their actions.
Well, there's been days where like the best people are there and it all just goes so smoothly, and you're like, why can't it always be like this? And it's because it's just like the nature of the work and the people that you attract with the pay that you give. And then you structure the entire thing like garbage from the top to the bottom. You make sure that the top person hates everything, and the people that they manage hate everything, and the people they manage are students and people who hate everything. Students are the best. That's the people. A lot of people like say that like, you know, young people are the worst part about those jobs. They are the fucking best part about those jobs. They are the best workers.
Often, yeah.
30-year-olds who are in that job who are not going anywhere. This is not a transitionary point for them. People who are just in those jobs are so much worse than high school kids. High school kids bust their ass at school. They go home, eat, fucking walk to work, and then they work for like, I don't know, 3 hours usually, maybe a little more than that. Then they go home, do homework, and then wake up early for school again. They have way better work habits and work ethics because they're used to doing shit all day for other people, and this is the moment where they get to do it for money, and they get to buy shit. And buying shit when you're a young person is amazing because there's no consequences to it. You don't really have to make like good decisions. It's really just about it's not can I afford it? It's can I buy it?
Right, that's a very good point. That is a very good point. There's not the same long-term consideration.
Right. And so if, you know, I think a lot of people have said, you know, you have your whole life to work. I think you should get a job when you're young. I think you should really get a sense of what working is like and what shitty jobs are like, because chances are you will get a shitty job. And just having money when you're a kid is amazing. Not having to ask your parents if you can go to the movies.
It makes a massive difference. It's independence, right?
Yeah, it is. It's like the first version of independence you can get, and the second one is a vehicle, and you can work before you can get a car. So, yeah,
That's a very good point.
If it works for you, fucking go for it.
When you're working in a role like that, when you are 30, it is hard to not be disheartened by the fact that, you know, you're kind of stuck there for a while, because the problem is that job doesn't help you get any other jobs. You don't learn any skills.
That's what I mean by a transitionary period. Everyone that I've met whom I've liked has also, not coincidentally, left that place faster than I did. The people that I don't really like were there before me and are there after me. Mm-hmm. And it's not a coincidence. Those things are connected. Like my buddy, who I met there, he was only there for like, I don't know, 3 months, maybe 4 months. And it was because he never stopped looking for jobs. He found that one to make money in the middle, and then he continued looking for jobs. I, however, was looking for a job, found that one, got just kind of sucked into it, and then just never tried until I found a new one. And that was the difference, is that, you know, one person was willing to work hard to find something.
I just mean that if you are one of those people that sort of feels like you're stuck in it, it's not over.
No.
Just because that job isn't teaching you anything new doesn't mean you can't learn new things. And learning new things sounds so trivial and easy, but in reality, when you're working a full-time job, it is kind of hard.
Ron McDonald made that place into what it is now, like 55.
Well, Ray Kroc, but
Ray
yes.
Kroc, yeah, Ron McDonald.
Yeah.
Ray McDonald.
Yeah.
He turned it into what it is
Ron
when he was
McCroc.
55. An age where a lot of people at 55 would say that it's over, that it's too late for me. I can't learn new things. I can't do new things. That's fucking bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
You can start new shit today. I mean, how long do you think it'll take? You really think it takes like 40 or 30 years to learn a new thing? It might take 30 years to master something, but you can learn new stuff. You can start playing guitar now if you want to, but you gotta want to.
Yeah, you definitely gotta want to. It's not easy, that's for sure. Like, just doing new things, definitely not easy. But one of the best lines I've heard that helps everyone, no matter where they are, is cultivate the portions of the garden that you can touch. So don't spend all your time trying to go out and save people in a third world country if you're not doing anything here and now to improve your life and the life of people around you. Maybe
Right.
instead of focusing on trying to do something for someone that you may never see, try starting with being nice to the people around you. And if you can do that,
Absolutely.
it'll be easier to help others who aren't around you.
Or maybe take the Terry Crews approach, that there's no path to happiness, that happiness is the path. Happiness is the way, rather, is what he said.
Well, and
Which-
also, those people that you're being nicer to, they'll help you get to happiness.
Yeah, oh yeah.
If you're not being nice to people, they're not going to help you get to happiness. And
If
it's
you-
not out
yeah,
of
if
spite,
you-
they just don't want to.
If you put that positivity into people, I don't like the whole, like, put it into the universe. I think that's a little, like, too... But if you put that positivity into people, even when they don't give it to you, eventually you'll get it back. Maybe not from that person, but people notice that shit. And you never know. I mean, you could get a job. Like, you could be at a shitty fast food place and put your all into a job and get a job from a customer.
I will say one last thing to finish your analogy there. It's kind of like a boat rising in the tide. The boat goes up and down with the waves still, but overall it's getting higher as the tide comes in.
Right.
So it's really about focusing on the tide and not the waves. The waves are what are going to make you feel like you can't keep rising. But you need to say, fuck those waves. Just because I'm at a low now doesn't mean I won't cycle back to a high. And it doesn't mean that my future lows won't be higher than they are right now. Just keep doing it, people. Just keep fucking doing it. Just like this arena attempt, you just got to keep hammering it.
So when Terry Crews was first in Expendables, he didn't have much of a role. His character didn't have a lot of lines. And he was very disheartened by it. And he kind of carried that with him around on set until he read that happiness is the way thing. And he started to just put that energy out and do everything that his character did with full exuberance and be excited with people off camera. And Stallone liked it so much that he wrote parts for him because he loved it. He was like, that energy is amazing. I want it on screen. Let's do it. So he crafted happiness for himself. He didn't wait for someone to give him an opportunity to be happy. He made that happiness and it came to him.
Yeah, people don't like whiny complainers.
Even if you're right, even if you have a thing to complain about, if you shoulder your burden, people will respect that. But if you constantly complain about it, you make it their burden too.
Yes, don't
even
burden
if,
those
and,
around
and
you.
even if you have something to truly complain about, most people won't care. They will only focus on the part about how you keep bringing it up.
The less you burden those around you, the more ability they'll have to help you when you need it.
Right.
Right. Thank you for joining us. Next time, post arena.